New video tonight showing the slow but steady fight against the flood.
This is day 85.
For almost 90 days.
Today marks the 111th day of flooding.
It feels like it's never ending.
This is the last time. I'm not coming back.
I won't be coming back here.
I'll never live here again.
Now, while some wait for the water to go down, the National Guard is helping keep the water out.
In the place hardest hit by flooding this year, East Cape Girardeau, Illinois. We came over the Bill Emerson Bridge, and like these trucks you see, we very carefully drove through more than a foot of water in places. I can tell you, after covering flooding in this area for 30 years, I have never seen anything like this.
Justin, right now the U.S. Coast Guard, their boats are in the water and they're rescuing flood victims from the mobile homes behind me. You can see one boat is in the water over there, and then another boat is near someone's mobile home, knocking on the door, talking to the resident inside.
Once again, I'm standing in Seep Water, but this time I'm on Grapevine Trail, which if we're open, you could get to McClure, Illinois. The other way you could get there usually is through Route 3, which is located across this flooded field.
Take a look behind me. You can see this very long stretch of the sandbag wall right in front of the community center here in East Cape. The water is over it. It has breached. Numerous members with the National Guard and the Illinois Emergency Management Agency are on site starting to help some people, residents, get some of their belongings up. But you can see how far up on the property line this water is getting. This area was completely dry maybe a few hours ago.
Good afternoon. We're bringing you Heartland News now live from a very troubled spot in this most recent round of flooding. We're at what they call the Cape Y, which is the intersection of Route 3 and 146. You can see traffic backed up for at least a half a mile there. Walk over here. Here's the trouble spot. This is a pinch point where there is one stoplight, one lane, both directions. That is causing a massive traffic backup. But take a look over here. That is still preferable to this. This is Route 3 South. This has been closed down until since Saturday, and this is because it is underwater between here and Thebes. Take a look at some drone video that we shot just today of Route 3 toward Gale. No cars can make it through this. All the water just made the road too dangerous to drive on, and IDOT closed it down on Saturday. They plan to keep it closed until the flooding recedes, and that could be a while yet.
Greetings, Heartland, from a waterlogged Alexander County. Kathy Sweeney here with Grant Dade and a decent-sized crew from Heartland News. We are working on an upcoming flooding special for you, but we want to give you an update right now. This is Mike Turner with Alexander County Emergency Management. We literally watched him drive through a ton of water. What is this? This is Grapevine Trail, right?
Yes, right.
How deep would you say the water is?
It's probably about 10 inches deep right now.
Safe for high-profile vehicles like yours, or are we hoping that most folks stay off of this road?
We're hoping most folks stay off of it.
People still living in the flooded trailer park now have until tomorrow morning to evacuate before the electricity is turned off around 12 noon. Now, this same body of water is flooding homes in McClure, Illinois, down the road. I spoke to one man who has the choice to leave his home and is still on the fence.
But I'll stay until they give me no choice to go. And when I go, I'll never live here again because I've had enough of it. They're just going to let McClure drown.
Longtime McClure resident Bob Long says it kills him to watch his family home flood year after year.
I got an inch of water in my bathroom. If the water raises 7 more inches up here, it'll take out my structures and it'll take out my brother's home. God forbid Route 3 shuts down. It's unfortunate that the highways mean more than the life that's in this valley.
75.
About 30 soldiers with the National Guard continued sandbagging around Alexander County to prevent floodwaters from reaching more homes.
People got God in their heart, care, and want to help each other. There's just nothing nobody can do up here.
Long tells me he has a camper in Missouri that his family can escape to and says he cannot wait for this year's flood to be over.
I've never been 90 days in water. It's a roller coaster ride you can't imagine. Only the people here know that turmoil.
The calendar barely rolled over to 2019 when the Ohio River started to rise. On February 11th, the Ohio at Paducah went above flood stage and kept going. The floodgates were installed along the Paducah waterfront.
Across the river, officials at Harrah's Casino in Metropolis hoped they wouldn't have to close.
Our main goal is to keep this place open, to keep it going, because when it is shut down, unfortunately, it does impact the economy, the local economy.
But as the water inched closer, Harrah's was forced to shut down on February 18th. Flooding got the attention of new Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, who came to tour the damage on February 26th.
You should all know that we're going to be back whenever anything happens to this community that we can be helpful with. That's what the state of Illinois is here to do, to back you up and to stand up for you.
Harrah's reopened its casino on March 19th, but it took more time for the hotel to get back in business. The Ohio River finally went back below flood stage in Paducah on March 24th. Ironically, as the Ohio River started going down back in March, the Mississippi began its historic rise. I'm here at the famous floodgate in downtown Cape Girardeau. It closed back on March 14th after the river went above flood stage. And the next day, on March 15th, the Broadway floodgates also closed. Between mid-March and the beginning of May, the Mississippi River rose steadily. It impacted the Boot Heel first, as you can see from this Drone 12 video in New Madrid County on March 21st.
I'm afraid it's going to get worse before it gets better. But it's nothing out of the ordinary for us.
That's Sheriff Terry Stevens talking about the reality of living in this area. By the end of May, the Mississippi River had been above flood stage for more than 2 months. On May 22nd, seep water started appearing in East Cape Girardeau in Alexander County. Volunteers from Shawnee High School filled sandbags, trying to keep the water from getting into homes and over roads. The flood fight was on.
We know that if we need help in like Ware or Grand Tower, they're going to come up and help us, so we're going to come down here and help them.
The seep water continued to creep up on roads and homes in East Cape, and on June 10th, evacuations began.
I'm just praying that God will keep his hands on everything and let all my stuff be all right.
But then a new problem, the seep water slowly devouring the busy routes 3 and 146.
I mean, it's frustrating, but I don't know what I could tell somebody to do that could have prevented this.
We don't have all the time to list all the roads that are closed or back open in the Heartland, but we do keep track of as many as we can on our website. You can also find a full list on the KFVS mobile news app.
This is Heartland News at 5.
You know, he is a true sociopathic killer.
And I shot him again and again and again.
He's an evil individual.
The clock is ticking for death row inmate Russell Bucklew. After more than 20 years, will his sentence finally be carried out?
Russell Bucklew's death sentence is on hold, at least for now.
The Supreme Court decided in a 5-4 decision to grant a stay of execution for Russell Bucklew.
It's the final hour, and we're live in Bonne Terre now.
Governor Parson this morning denying clemency to Bucklew, and right now he is in his final hours. The 2 most recent stays were issued due to a concern over a rare medical condition that Bucklew suffers. His attorneys argue that putting him to death could cause severe pain as blood-filled tumors in his head could burst. But then in April of this year, the Supreme Court ruled that Bucklew has no right to a painless death. That cleared the way for this evening's execution. And for the first time, we are hearing what Bucklew told police all those years ago about the crimes that put him on death row. Kathy Sweeney has this exclusive look at Bucklew's taped police interrogation back in 1996.
What charges do you guys have me on?
Russell, I'm sure they've got you charged with capital murder, first-degree murder.
What's capital?
Russell Bucklew sits calmly in a wheelchair during his police interview 6 days after the murder of Michael Sanders and the kidnapping and sexual assault of his ex-girlfriend. As officers hand him his medication and some water, Bucklew asks,
"What does that bring? Death penalty?"
Bucklew starts by taking investigators through the weeks leading up to the crimes. He talks about his medical condition and a falling out with Stephanie Pruitt. He also recalls first meeting Michael Sanders when he returned to the trailer he used to share with Pruitt.
I guess this is this Mike guy. I didn't know his name. So I grabbed a knife and I put it to his throat. I said, "You better get the hell out of my house or I'm going to kill you. If you ever come back, I'm going to kill you."
Bucklew also admits getting violent with Pruitt, punching her in the face during one fight, tying her up during another.
What did you tie her up with that time?
Huh?
What did you tie her up?
Oh, they were little plastic ties.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Bucklew's demeanor doesn't change as he talks about the day of the crimes. According to the police report, Bucklew went to Sanders' house and confronted him as Pruitt took their combined 4 children to a back bedroom. Sanders had a shotgun in his hands when Bucklew opened fire.
And he moved and I shot. And then his gun, when he turned, his gun went off into the wall and I shot him again. And again and again, I guess. And he fell back in that room. I was like, holy.
While Bucklew tries to claim Pruitt wanted to leave with him, he admits handcuffing her, and worse.
And she wouldn't get down, and I was adrenaline pumping. I smacked her in the head with a pistol, not real hard, but I smacked her. She went down on the ground, and I cuffed her, got her up, and ran to the car, got in the car, and took off. And the girl...
Bucklew then makes an impossible claim about Sanders, who police say died inside his home.
And the guy said something, and I said, "You mother, I'll kill you." He goes, "I think you already did." I said, "Well, I hope not."
He was still talking to you then?
Yes.
Bucklew continues telling his version of events, somehow twisting Pruitt's kidnapping and rape into a long drive and an intimate moment. When he talks about his shootout with police in St. Louis County, he again downplays what he did.
And that's when the shooting started, and I just laid down the seat and shot out the. They shot me once, and I think right here, and then I started shooting out the window.
Bucklew does show emotion during the interview. It's when he talks about the fact that he's still alive.
Why didn't they just kill me, man? I told them I didn't want to be put on life support, and they did it anyway.
He also asks repeatedly about what kind of punishment he might face.
You think I'll get the max? I don't know.
As the 4-hour interview comes to an end, Russell Bucklew seems to realize the gravity of what he's done.
I thought Steph was it, man. And she broke my heart, and then I killed her boyfriend. Wow. This is just real heavy, man.
Russell Bucklew has been on death row for more than 20 years. A jury handed down that guilty verdict, which sentenced him to die, and those who worked on the case all those years ago have been waiting for that sentence to be carried out ever since. I sat down with Cape County Sheriff's detective earlier last week, Lieutenant Eric Frederick, who says that he is happy that tonight it looks like justice will finally be served.
When this 911 call came in on March 21st, 1996, calling authorities to a mobile home on Pyrite Lane in rural Cape County, Lieutenant Eric Frederick was a young detective assigned to the Cape Girardeau-Bollinger County Major Case Squad.
And I think it was the first homicide that I had actually physically been a part of that was out in the county.
But Lieutenant Frederick says this case stands out in his memory for more reasons than that alone.
I've worked a number of homicides over the years, and this is one that I think that I recall where there were small children around, and you know, 2 of them lost their father.
Lieutenant Frederick wasn't first on the scene that night. He says when he arrived, other officers had already taken the children out of the mobile home.
There was a child in the house that was old enough that had a good recollection of what transpired there in the trailer.
Evidence collected at the scene painted a violent picture. 27-year-old Michael Sanders was dead.
He had been shot multiple times.
Sanders' girlfriend and mother of 2 of the kids, Stephanie Pruitt, had been kidnapped. A description given by neighbors in a previous report of domestic violence filed by Stephanie Pruitt in Cape Girardeau led police to believe the likely suspect was then 28-year-old Russell Bucklew.
From her statement, we found out that after he had shot and killed Michael Sanders, he had taken her out west of Jackson, where he sexually assaulted her.
4.5 hours after Sanders' murder, Bucklew was involved in a police pursuit and shootout in the St. Louis area. Police shot Bucklew, Bucklew shot Pruitt. Both survived. Lieutenant Frederick doesn't want us to show the evidentiary photos taken of Pruitt as she recovered in a hospital bed.
You can see where she was bandaged there, and obviously she had been, struck in the face.
They show a blonde Pruitt staring bewildered, out of eyes blackened and swollen. A blood-soaked bandage is wrapped tightly around her upper thigh. the place where Bucklew's bullet hit.
Yeah.
But just because Bucklew was caught didn't mean his desire to harm Pruitt had ended. Lieutenant Frederick says when Bucklew broke out of jail, he went straight back to find her.
It's kind of a rarity for someone to go back like that. Usually, you know, the first instinct is just to get away from the area as quickly as possible, you know, to avoid prosecution. But not him. He went right back and tried to finish what he had started. The guy is just, he's an evil individual. I mean, my personal opinion is that he wanted to finish it. It's one of those, well, if I can't have you, nobody will.
Bucklew injured Pruitt's stepfather, hitting him in the head with a hammer. Eventually, Bucklew was captured and taken back into custody. That's where he's remained for 23 years, awaiting execution, a fate Lieutenant Frederick says is long overdue.
If you go back and you think about what he did, comes into a trailer, guns a-blazing with, you know, 4 little kids in there. He doesn't know where his bullets are going to land. Morley Swingle said that he was one of the worst he'd ever prosecuted, and I'm not going to disagree with him on that. I think he's right up there at the top.
This is a Breaking Now alert from Heartland News.
Good evening, everyone. We are breaking into programming to bring you this special report on the execution of death row inmate Russell Bucklew. Carly O'Keefe and Kathy Sweeney are live in Bonne Terre, and we're going to go to them now with the latest.
That's right, Jeff. Kathy Sweeney just power walked out here. She was just released from the death chamber where she was a witness for the state. Now, Kathy, what did you see in there?
All right, well, I can tell you that we were all taken out of the room that we were being kept in at about 6:05. And honestly, when that 6 o'clock hour came, several people turned to each other and said, is this going to happen now or not? Because there have been delays in his case. But at about 6:05, we were all taken into a viewing room. It was a very dark room. We sat in 2 rows of chairs. There were about 7 of us witnesses. They opened the curtain, and there we saw Russell Bucklew lying on a gurney with a white sheet up to his chest. He had his head turned away from us at first, and then he turned his head, never looking over to us, but really more kind of straight ahead. He did that twice, and as we were all sitting there, you could see his feet twitching under the sheet. And then there was a sigh, and then that was it. There was no more movement.
Thank you, Kathy. Again, our coverage is going to continue online on KFVS12.com and also on our Facebook page. We're going to be doing a live interview in just a moment, so please join us there, and we'll see you later for Heartland News at 10.
I'm Kathy Sweeney, live in Bonne Terre, where just moments ago Russell Bucklew was put to death by lethal injection for the 1996 murder of Michael Sanders, in a crime that also resulted in the kidnapping and sexual assault of his ex-girlfriend. I'm joined now by Morley Swingle, who's the Cape County prosecuting attorney who prosecuted the Bucklew case. Morley, thank you for joining us. Tell us, first of all, why you chose to be here tonight.
After Russell Bucklew got the death penalty, his victim, who lived, Stephanie Pruitt, had said she wanted to come to the execution. She wanted her face to be the last thing he saw, and I promised her I would come with her. She was later tragically murdered by another husband, and so I was here for her today.
This is a Breaking Now alert from Heartland News.
Breaking at 4, an arrest in the 13-year-old case of a missing mother of 2. 35-year-old Teresa Butler vanished from her home in Risco back in January 2006. Kathy Sweeney joining us live outside the New Madrid County Sheriff's Office with very exclusive details at 4. Kathy?
Carly, the Tallapoosa man now charged in connection with the death of Teresa Butler is someone authorities call a person of interest in her case from the very beginning. Take a look. 42-year-old Melvin Ray Hufford is charged with first-degree manslaughter and tampering with evidence. Hufford's accused of injecting Butler with methamphetamine the night she died, wrapping her body in a tarp and taking it out of her house, then stealing some items from the home in an attempt to make it look like the Butlers had been robbed. New Madrid County Sheriff Terry Stevens joins me now live. And Sheriff Stevens, can you tell us what happened, what led to the charges against Hufford today?
Well, obviously, with the ongoing investigation that's took this long, we've had a lot of information that we had to glean through until we come up with enough to charge him. We submitted the probable cause affidavit yesterday afternoon and got the charge today.
Authorities call Melvin Ray Hufford a person of interest in the Butler case from day one. In court documents, Hufford lays out a disturbing story that begins the night of Teresa's disappearance. According to court records, Hufford claims he was doing methamphetamine with Teresa and a second man at the Butler home on January 24, 2006. Court records indicate Hufford injected them both with the drug, then described Butler as saying her chest hurt. Hufford says Butler soon passed out, then didn't have a pulse. According to authorities, Hufford says they freaked out, wrapped Teresa's body in a tarp, then tried to make it look like someone robbed the home. Hufford recalls grabbing several items, he said, including this camcorder, fished out of a ditch in 2007. He also allegedly admits putting Butler's body under the sink of this abandoned house in Tallapoosa, where it stayed for a couple of years. We watched as investigators pulled evidence out of the home late last spring. Teresa's final resting place, according to Hufford, a ditch south of Tallapoosa. We watched from a distance in December 2017 as investigators searched for any evidence. Court records indicate Teresa Butler's remains have never been recovered.
Now, this case has always been a personal one for New Madrid County Sheriff Terry Stevens. He joins us now live. Sheriff Stevens, I know you're from Risco, which is where Teresa was living when she disappeared. How did you feel when you learned today was the day that someone would face charges in connection with her disappearance?
Actually, very relieved, very excited, because this has been a long time coming. We've put untold amount of man hours and effort into coming to this end today.
You've kept a picture in your office of Teresa since she went missing. Why, on a personal level, did you take this case to heart the way you did?
Well, just like you said, Risco is my hometown. I have a bunch of family that lives there, many, many friends that live there. It could have very easily been one of them.
Authorities in New Madrid County closed their two biggest cold cases. First, the October 2018 announcement that the killer of Sherry and Megan Shearer had been identified through DNA. Then today's arrest in connection with the Teresa Butler disappearance. Kathy has followed both cases very closely. And Kathy, how are investigators feeling about reaching these milestones?
You know, Jeff, the sheriff said if he had to put it in one word, he'd say he's ecstatic. These are two of the most important cases in this region, no doubt. And he said to clear one, much less both of them, is simply outstanding work. I will tell you, these are some very hardworking officers. They don't brag on themselves much, but we've had the honor, Bill and I, of watching them over the years, working both of these cases diligently. And there is no doubt that their hard work led to that resolution in October of 2018 and also led to the charges we've been reporting earlier today.
So, Kathy, it took 20 years to solve the Shearer case, 13 to make an arrest in the Butler case. Was there ever a point where investigators feared these cases would never be solved?
You know, I've asked the sheriff that, and I've asked Bud Cooper with the Highway Patrol, Chris Hensley, who's played a big role from the sheriff's office here, and they said, you know, they've had many doubts over the years, but one thing they never did was not work these cases. The Madrid County Sheriff's Office and the Missouri State Highway Patrol have always kept officers dedicated to both cases, which, in my opinion, is pretty rare these days. So for 20 years it took, they worked the Shearer case. For the 13 years they worked the Butler case. To have both of these outcomes, I know there are a lot of very humble yet very proud officers here in New Madrid County tonight. Jeff?
All right, Kathy, thank you. You can read much more about this case right now at KFVS12.com. We put the probable cause document on there with the new information today. Also, you can read up on this case and see Kathy's stories from over the years.
Yeah, Nana's kissing you.
Remembering the good times. That's what the Whiteside family focuses on these days.
Her life was all about love and teaching us how to love others.
Last spring, everything changed. Kathy Whiteside got sick. Her doctor prescribed the antibiotic Levaquin.
And she texted me and she said, he's never prescribed this antibiotic to me before, but my mom looked it up and says it's for a bacterial infection.
Randy Whiteside says his wife took one pill. He left to go babysit the couple's grandchildren. He came home that night to something he'll never forget.
She had taken a gun and was here in the kitchen.
And I walked over to her to say my goodbyes. And I seen what she had done and what had happened. And I looked back at Dad and I was like, what in the world?
No one could wrap their heads around why Kathy would take her own life.
Never thought in 10 lifetimes that my mother would have done that.
Levaquin is a fluoroquinolone antibiotic. If you've taken Cipro, it's also in that class. The FDA has put out multiple warnings about these types of drugs, saying they can cause disabling and potentially permanent side effects. Those include tendon rupture and nerve damage, but also psychiatric problems like confusion, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts.
Do you need a doctor's excuse for today? Yes, please.
Even with the warnings, doctors continue to prescribe these drugs and the generic versions on a daily basis. Many will tell you that's because they work, especially for things like urinary tract infections. But the FDA says they should be reserved for patients with no alternative treatment options.
If you Googled right now Levaquin and suicide or Levaquin and psychosis, there are copious amounts of articles out there, and these are evidence-based research that state, yes, this could potentially cause harm.
Melissa Christian is a family nurse practitioner. She calls this type of antibiotic a last resort.
I think I wrote Levaquin probably twice in the last 3 years. I don't write the drug.
Since not every physician feels that way, ask any pharmacist and they'll tell you they dispense fluoroquinolone antibiotics on a daily basis.
This group of antibiotics is very effective, but just hard on the body.
And for that reason, Ben Talley, who's been a pharmacist for 50 years, tries to make sure his customers know the risks.
We need to ask questions about them. We need to look at the information and make sure, as a consumer, that you understand the pros and cons.
Saying, do your homework.
Yes, nothing is innocuous.
Next month marks the 1-year anniversary of Kathy Whiteside's death.
This is a horrible story. This is the worst story. But still, there's people that are taking this crap.
While some may question how one pill could cause a person to end their life, the Whiteside family says there's no other explanation.
She just thought of others too much, and she would have known what that would have done to her grandbabies.
And the sound of the grandchildren's laughter, that's what keeps them going. Motivation to share Kathy's story, hoping no one else experiences their pain.
This stuff literally murdered my wife.
In our investigation, we learned Levaquin is no longer being manufactured, but will remain on the market until next year. However, the generics are also still available. If you head to our news app and Facebook page, there you will find the extended digital version of our story, which includes more stories of local people who say they were affected by these antibiotics. Also, responses from the drug companies and the FDA.
My father was a serial killer.
Deborah Brashears says these words as if the more she says them, the more they might make sense.
What my father done is not my fault, and I have to keep telling myself that.
Robert Brashears' double life began for Deborah when her dad got out of prison. She was 5.
I remember the truck pulling in the driveway and him getting out of it. Like, I can visually see it.
Brashears quickly stepped into the role of dad, Deborah recalls, helping raise her and her twin half-sisters. She shares this family photo, one of just 2 she has.
He's playing around with my sisters, acting like he's choking them, and they're trying to beat him with hairbrushes, and I'm playing around with him, and it doesn't look like a serial killer or a rapist.
To Deborah, he looked like the ideal dad. He had his own construction company. He had business cards. She thought they were rich.
And he would be gone for sometimes weeks at a time.
Was he working?
That's what we were told.
But this 2-year period in Deborah's life came just months after her father raped a teenage girl in Memphis. It came around the same time he took the lives of Sherry and Megan Shearer, attacked a woman in Dyersburg, and tried to break into a Paragould, Arkansas woman's home.
And the family man and the serial killer and rapist did not mix until 98. When he started going crazy. My mother would leave for work and tell us, do not let him out of the house.
Soon after, Robert Brashears was on the run.
We would go pick him up, and my mom would make a game out of it, and we'd carry a rug in. You know, we'd buy a new rug every time we went and picked him up and carry a rug in to where you couldn't see around him.
Deborah knew about her father's suicide in a Kennett motel room, but her mom always questioned if police had actually pulled the trigger. So when a pair of officers knocked on her door last September, she hesitated.
He said, "I'm here from Missouri State Police." I said, "You're here about my father." They said, "How do you know?" I said, "Because you're from Missouri and that's where he killed himself at, and I have a feeling that there's something wrong."
They told her they were investigating a series of cold cases, rapes, and murders. She found herself eager to help.
Was there any hesitation at all?
No.
They said, "Can we have a DNA sample?"
They never even asked me. I asked them. I'm like, "Do you want one?" They're like, "Yes, we have the kit and everything in the car." I'm like, "I'll give you one right now."
When they left, Deborah says she just knew.
October 2nd, they called me and said, "We're on our way to Alabama." I said, "Is it true?" They said, "We would not be coming if it wasn't."
She would soon learn more than she ever had about her father, but the news would turn her life inside out.
I feel ashamed for it being my father, and I feel every day I feel a different way about him. He never got charged, never got caught, and got away with this for almost 20 years. Even being dead, got away with this for 20 years.
From the outside, it's ordinary, just another building along William and Cape Girardeau. But take a closer look, and you'll get a ringside view of men taking back their lives.
There you go.
Close to 20 guys come to this boxing gym 3 times a week.
There you go, there you go. We're learning. Everything that we do now, we're learning something new every week. There we go. Great.
Danny Reese wasn't planning on this new group. It just sort of happened. You see, this is his passion.
When I was 16, I started boxing.
He opened this gym to help kids, but it's become about the entire community, and now even patients with Parkinson's disease.
We know that we can make somebody stronger. We can make somebody more versatile. We can give them their life back.
It all started with Steve Douglas from East Prairie. He heard about Danny's gym and figured he had nothing to lose.
Within weeks, I saw an improvement in my walk.
Words started to get out.
When I first came, I couldn't do much. Normally I do, 2 or 3 setups. All I could do now. I did 100 already this morning. 1.
Before coming here, Tim Estes could barely get out of a chair.
It's helped me so much. I can't even describe how much it's helped me.
On your toes?
It's a team effort. Lots of volunteers, input from physicians, and research by a Mizzou med student.
It just shows like anything can happen anywhere.
He comes once a week to collect information.
Boxing deals with balance, right? So you're on 2 feet, you're balancing, you're doing different movements.
There you go.
As they try to customize each workout.
Everyone needs different exercises, everyone needs to be targeting different things.
1, 2.
Take Michael Brown, for instance.
1. Come on, Mike. Come on. Keep breathing. Come on.
Michael was hit by a car years ago. He had a head injury and suffered a massive stroke.
Come on, I'll get the numbers. Come on.
He also has Parkinson's disease.
He loves being here.
Shirley Fan makes the trip from Puxico to bring her son Michael every week.
He is not going to miss a time. I think he would probably try to hitchhike. I really do.
She says he's walking better, talking better, and overall has a better outlook on life.
Keep digging. Come on.
And how long have you been living with Parkinson's?
I'm in my 11th year.
There you go.
Whether it's literal or figurative, Gene Garrison puts on the boxing gloves every day.
Come on, back you up. Come on.
Telling his disease to get in the ring.
Some days are harder than others, yeah. We have an excellent leader in Danny Reese.
Come on, don't get wore out now. Come on, let's go.
Pretty much of a drill sergeant in my mind, but that's what it takes, someone to push.
Hoping to restore mind, body, and soul.
And I think there's some value in being with each other with people like that and sharing shared experiences.
This place is full. I mean, it's full of laughter. The excitement for me is joy on people's faces.
And you gotta smile, dude, Murray! Go!
Honestly, that's the biggest thing I see change is their confidence in just walking and stepping out in the world again.
And for this group, It's all about faith.
Amazing God you are.
Faith to get them through the day and the ones to come.
This is probably the biggest punch they've ever been hit with, because it's something most of them would trade all the money they have to be normal.
And this is their new normal. And it sure helps to have a lot of positive friends in their corner.
Fight it. Fight it, fight it, fight it. If you can't stand up, work to where you can. If you can't walk, work to where you can.
Go! Go! In Cape Girardeau, Crystal Britt, Heartland News.
Gotta get some hits and runs, girls.
Helen Kirby is the team cheerleader.
Over the fence. Over the fence.
It doesn't matter what we're doing, she's always an encourager to the team.
Not only that, but she's on the team too.
Force on second, girls.
Hi.
Way to be.
At the age of 83, Helen is still loving every minute of playing softball.
Let's go, girls. What you say now? Let's get her out.
No problem getting that ball back to the pitcher time and time again.
Well, because I like it. I love it.
And she's behind the plate the entire game.
It's okay. You can do it.
Well, I don't really feel my age in one way till I look in the mirror. I gotta tell you.
It's a lifelong love of the game.
Well, I was probably playing when I was 6, 7, 8.
She played on the boys' team back in school and even played league ball when she was pregnant.
Good hit, good hit.
Also suffered a little setback in her 70s.
Well, I slid into third base and broke my ankle. That's the first I ever had any breakable or any hurt since I've been playing.
Didn't keep her down long, though. She plays in a women's league here in Poplar Bluff. They typically have a couple games a week.
We don't practice, we just get out there and play ball.
On this night, a doubleheader in the scorching heat.
It's getting warm out there.
She's definitely impressive, in great shape.
Actually, she can outrun some of us.
And powers through these hot summer nights like a champ.
She's definitely an inspiration to all of us, and she's one of the most positive, encouraging people I've ever met.
One down, let's make it 2.
And at this point in the game, they're down by several runs.
Catch it. Way to go, all right.
Helen may not hit the ball out of the park like she'd like to.
No, I'm slower, and I haven't been hitting as good.
But she still helps her team, like with this hit. That's right, an RBI. Only difference these days, she calls for a pinch runner.
Sarah! Sarah!
To make the game even sweeter, she plays with her 2 daughters.
Run, 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 run! Run hard! You got it!
And how many players can say they have grandkids and great-grandkids in the stands?
That's my boy.
Whether we're on the field or off the field, she is just an incredible woman. Just an amazing person all around.
You're on deck, aren't you? Oh, I am. Oh, mercy.
And she makes everyone laugh.
We got some rattling bats. Bases loaded. Run, 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 girls, run, 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 run.
They're probably wondering when I'm gonna retire, but.
Oh, we'll let her play as long as she wants to play.
Good hit, good hit. One more is all we need, girls. Let's go.
With all this positive energy, her team is right back on top.
Call it.
Woo! And that's a winner.
Thank you.
While aging is inevitable, Helen proves acting your age is overrated.
Enjoyed it, girls. Enjoyed it. Good game.
Woo! In Poplar Bluff, Crystal Britt, Heartland News.
All the models are lining up.
We have to do this.
So how much are we going to get?
About an inch.
emergency, and this is why. New video today at 4. You're looking at the tornado that hit the Paducah area this morning and caused widespread damage. We have complete coverage coming up today on Heartland News Now. Good afternoon. We are live on the grounds of Mount Zion Baptist Church and Preschool Center, which was kind of the epicenter of this morning's tornado. You can take a look behind me and you see all this corrugated metal right here. That all came from the church. And let me walk around and show you. There is a huge piece of roof missing from not only this building, but the next building over. And back this way, you can see part of that roof still in someone's yard. Now, this is a pretty common sight. There is corrugated metal absolutely everywhere around this area. Pieces like this are littering the grounds here. There's broken wood. There's nails everywhere. It's not a good situation, and authorities are advising people to avoid this area if at all possible. And we want to take a look at that tornado video one more time. Thanks to Joe Jackson at the West Kentucky Star for letting us use this video. Joe shot this in the Lone Oak area. You're looking at Interstate 24, Lourdes Hospital by the Whitehaven Welcome Center and Home Floor Center, those nearby. State police say that the first responders learned about the tornado at 9:20 this morning. They say it impacted about 5 square miles of western McCracken County. There is one confirmed injury. State police say non-life-threatening. Also, several roads are closed and linemen are working to get power back on to those who don't have it. So we have live team coverage today at 4 o'clock. Laura is in the studio, of course, still monitoring the weather, although it's much improved throughout the day. And Kelsey Anderson is with me here at Mount Zion Baptist Church and Preschool Center. And Kelsey, you have a look inside.
Well, yeah, Carly, officials tell us that 39 kids were inside the preschool at this church around 9:20 this morning when the tornado ripped through, taking off a large portion of the roof. They tell us all the children and teachers got out safely and no one was injured. But after the storm passed, the church became the command center for emergency personnel. This area seemed to have sustained the most damage. I spoke with a sheriff's deputy earlier today who says he was parked in the church parking lot when the tornado hit and flipped his car.
At one point, just saw the wind, all the trees started picking up, and the power lines, coming up out of the ground. So, and then it just hit my car, turned my car sideways, and started breaking out all the windows, and I could just hear debris slamming off the side of my car. So.
The officer was able to get out of his car and make his way into the church. He had no injuries. Now, there is still a lot of debris, and as you can tell, the wind is still really blowing over here in western McCracken County. So authorities are asking people to please stay clear of the area where there is a lot of damage because it could be dangerous. Carly, back to you.
All right, thank you, Kelsey. And a Cape Girardeau man was also hurt in today's tornado. Now, that is the non-life-threatening injury that authorities told us about. Authorities say that 39-year-old James Gardner was driving on Highway 62 when that tornado came through around 9:20 this morning. A deputy who was one of the first on the scene tells me that he was on his way to work and his vehicle got pushed off of Highway 62 and a grain bin got pushed on top of him. Now, complicating the rescue effort were potentially live power lines that were wrapped around the grain bin, wrapped around the truck, and made it a very dangerous situation. So authorities had to call up the power company, make sure that those power lines were not live before they could get the guy safely out of the vehicle. Again, I'm told he only has just bumps and bruises, not any major injuries. So that is a relief and quite a miracle when you see the situation with the grain bin and the truck and the power lines surrounding him.
His pickup truck became entangled in a grain bin that wrapped his truck up and flipped his truck upside down, in which he was in the middle of the roadway. Rescue crews from the Concord Fire Department responded.
He was speaking, talking, just wanting to get out. He was wrapped up in a grain bin in his truck, and he was scared, and it had been a very traumatic for him, and it was a pretty serious situation, but luckily he come away with, looked like a few scratches and cuts.
So it was a very large extended cab pickup truck, and it sustained the damage pretty well. It was a Chevy Silverado, and the driver, again, only non-life-threatening injuries, bumps and bruises. No doubt, probably pretty shaken up after this ordeal. But back out here live, the sun is shining, the wind is gusting big time. Laura, back in the studio, can you tell us when these winds might die down and the cleanup can really start in earnest?
Yeah, they will start to die down as we get towards sunset and after sunset, but it's going to be pretty breezy even through the overnight hours into tomorrow as well. Check out some of these peaks over the last today 12 hours. 56-mile-per-hour wind gust in Cape, 46 in Paducah, 47 in Mount Vernon, and these are, of course, outside of the rain and thunderstorms we saw. Right now, winds gusting just a little bit lower than that, but notice the trend is going down, so we will still see some breezy conditions. Gust up to about 25 to 30 as we head overnight, but nothing like the gust we've seen over the past several hours. Currently, temperatures still very mild, 67 in Cape, 68 in Paducah, 68 also Murray, 70 in Union City. But notice Farmington already slipping into those mid-50s, and that's some colder air that will be pushing in as we head through the evening and into the overnight hours. So enjoy the sunshine right now, even though it's extremely windy, and enjoy the mild temperatures because those will be disappearing for many of us as we head into your Friday forecast. As far as tonight, no rain chances, no thunderstorm chances, not worried about any severe weather through the evening.
All right, thank you, Laura. Now, there are reports of damage in many parts of McCracken and Ballard counties. If you're one of those who had damage to your home, here's what you need to do as soon as possible. You need to contact emergency management officials. The number to contact them is right on your screen. It's 270-448-1530. Again, that is the number to call if you have damage to your property from this storm. So back out here live, as Laura was saying, the winds are extremely strong. In fact, my photographer has to hold tight to the tripod to make sure that this camera is staying in place. It is just every once in a while you get hit with a gust that really takes your breath away. So for those of you who are not impacted by today's storms, here's what you can do to help. Please stay away from areas like the one that we are in, just to make sure, because there are areas that there might still be live wires at this point. As I said earlier, there are broken beams, there are nails, there is corrugated metal everywhere. That's not good for tires, first of all, but it's definitely not good for feet. So you don't want to be walking in an area like this without the proper footwear, because you might end up in the hospital getting a tetanus shot. So you don't want to touch any of those power lines. Let the electric crews take care of those, and finally be patient with road closures as crews try to make sure that they are safe for you to drive on. Looking live now at the Mississippi River in Cape Girardeau, Public Works tells us that they are planning to close the floodgate at Themis this afternoon. Then the city is set to close the gate at Broadway tomorrow morning. Then they'll likely close the gate near Red Star Boat Ramp tomorrow. Right now, the Mississippi is at 34.5 feet, expected to crest at just under 40 feet over the weekend.
You're watching Heartland News Now.
Back out here live in western McCracken County, there is damage everywhere from this tornado that blew through around 9:20 this morning. Here I'm holding what I think might be a piece of the church roof. The church is directly over there, and it's missing a large chunk of roof. Most of it has flown over there. Some of it's up in the tree, and then there are just broken joists right here. But I wanted to show you something right behind me. There is a mobile home that has been partially crushed by a tree and definitely pushed over. And this is why authorities always say don't stay in a mobile home when you have severe weather. By the looks of it, it does not look like it was a very strong tornado. It was a tornado, we have learned, but even something as small as this could potentially end in disaster for someone in a mobile home. So you can see a lot of cleanup here. A lot of damage has been created around here near the Mount Zion Baptist Church and Preschool Center. So again, we have been following this for you live throughout the day. We're going to continue to follow it on Heartland News Now, right after weather.
Well, we are watching the weather closely, and I'm glad to say that tomorrow's wind impact won't be as big, but it's still going to be a little breezy. So we could still see that as today's wind impact. Let me go ahead and pull up tomorrow's for you real quickly because we want to see those numbers go away, right? There we go. 20s. Winds gusting up to about 20 to 25 miles per hour through the daytime hours tomorrow, but it's going to be much, much colder. We'll talk about how cold coming up.
Back out here live in West Paducah at the Mount Zion Baptist Church. We're actually on the grounds. The church is that way, and based on the sun, we can't really show it to you because you wouldn't see anything. But I want to show you the roof of the Mount Zion Baptist Church. A huge chunk of it was ripped off, and you can see, you can tell it's still a roof. It's still pretty much in the same formation that it was. And so that is how powerful this storm was. It picked that up, it carried it maybe 300 yards, dropped it in the neighbor's yard. And we also have more video and pictures coming in from viewers. A couple pictures from Melissa Pearson Dowell in Paducah. She says her daughter took this pic of severe damage in Lovelessville. That's in Ballard County, which is not too far from here. Looks like the tornado ripped off part of their roof of the barn there. A lot of other damage in that area as well. Melissa also sending us this damage at the Wilbert Vault Company on Fisher Road in West Paducah, not far from here either. It's a burial vault business. Looks like a power pole snapped. Also damage to the truck entrance sign. Thanks, Melissa, for those photos. Now to Laura.
Well, obviously you could tell in Carly's shot, you can hear it. The wind still howling out there. Not as strong as they were, say, an hour or two ago, but still, these are our current wind gusts. 44-mile-per-hour winds in Cape right now, gusting up to that. 32-mile-per-hour gust in Farmington, 43 in Paducah. So those are still going to be with us for the next couple of hours. Thankfully, though, it is mild and it is sunny. That helps us out. Kennett, 67 degrees right now with winds sustained around 20 miles per hour. Union City, you're sitting at 70 degrees. 56 though now in Farmington. That colder air will be pushing in. Notice in our northern counties we've seen those winds change to more of a westerly direction. They're going to drag in that cooler air. So this time tomorrow it's going to feel much different than what you're feeling out there right now. Glad to say those storms long gone from the heartland. All of us under sunshine right now, but there's a deck of clouds that are slowly trying to push into our north and western counties, and those clouds will start to take over as the colder air moves in tonight as well. So let's talk about it on Futurecast. Heading through the evening hours, no chance of any rainfall. Nothing severe tonight. Again, it's still going to be a little breezy, not as windy as last night, but there could still be some gust up to about 30 miles per hour through the overnight hours. Then more clouds push in as most of us are sleeping. Yeah, there's a possibility of a sprinkle or two, but most of us will stay dry. It will be cloudy and chilly as we wake up on Friday, and these clouds are going to hang at least through the morning hours. Our high-resolution models are showing some clearing from west to east through the daytime hours tomorrow, but especially in our eastern counties through say southern Illinois, western Kentucky, the clouds will be with you the longest. So it's going to feel really chilly under those clouds. After we get the sunshine, we do expect most of our numbers to at least get into the 40s for afternoon highs tomorrow. So if you have evening plans tonight, again, that colder air will start to push in, but not terrible. We'll slowly drop into the 50s, then back into the 40s. By the time we wake up tomorrow morning, I do think there will be a couple 30s on the map in our north and western counties. So mid 30s north and west to lower 40s the farther south and east you are. And then highs today, we're in the 70s. Tomorrow, there could be some places struggling to make it into the 40s. At this point, I'm keeping us all in the 40s thanks to that little sunshine that will return later in the day. If those clouds slow down and hang on longer, these numbers could be a little cooler, but may feel a lot colder than they feel, of course, right now. So keep that in mind. You will want your heavier jackets, maybe even your coats back with you tomorrow through the daytime hours.
Thank you, Laura. Now, as Kathy Sweeney was delivering the good news, there was more good news happening here in West Paducah. The cavalry has arrived. Power poles have come, and they are going to get to work to restore power to this area. A lot of power poles right around here were snapped, and that means for a lot of the folks who live here, that means they don't have power and they don't have water, because a lot of them around here are on wells, and without a pump powered by electricity, you have no water. So they're out of two basics around here. So they couldn't be happier to see folks like this rolling into their neighborhood. Meantime, the cleanup effort is probably going to have to wait until this wind dies down, and there is a lot of cleanup to do. Again, we are live here in West Paducah. We'll have continuing coverage on Heartland News at 5. Thanks for joining us for Heartland News Now.